In 2020, I had gotten to a point in my business where I resented being a personal trainer. I hated going to work and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. In this video, I'm going to walk you through where my mind was at the time and how I rebuilt my business better than ever. If you're new here, my name is Alexander Lyon. I'm a personal trainer in London. I have been for the last 10 years. I'm currently making around £90,000 a year, working 3 days per week, and I help personal trainers to make more money and have better relationships with their clients. So with that being said, let's get into it. When the first lockdown came in 2020, there was a big part of me that was kind of grateful for a break, to be honest. I'd actually started PTing originally because I wanted to be a boxer. I then, almost by mistake, ended up doing a lot better in PT than I ever expected to. I was loving life, but then in November 2019, I actually tore a disc in my lower back. Boxing essentially came to a halt after that, and I was left with a career that I never expected to have. I knew that the way I'd been running my business up to that point had left me deeply unhappy, and the prospect of continuing in that business was, not something I wanted to do. But it wasn't until that first lockdown where we had the chance to sit down, reflect, and really think about why this was happening, why I was feeling this way, and how I could fix it. I'd always think back to this one specific client that I had that would make me really just not feel good about my job. I remember I'd be coaching him and he would tell me, not in a nice way, he would tell me to shut up, yeah? And that never sat right with me. To be honest though, as a service professional, I just kind of figured you had to take it. You know, I'd had so much experience being a waiter and a barman and a barista that I just thought that you just take those kind of things. It wasn't just the rudeness and the disrespect that I resented. He was actually booked to train with me 3 times per week, but he would always cancel at least 2 of those, and he'd always do it 10-15 minutes before the session was supposed to start. Sometimes not even giving me that 15 minutes. He would ignore instruction about technique. He would act a lot more tired than he was, so that I wasn't sure how hard to push him. And I knew I was undercharging him, and that just made everything so much worse. But because he was paying me, I felt obliged to just put up and shut up. PT clients don't just grow on trees, so you hesitate to sack one even when you should, but especially as a more inexperienced trainer. But by no means was this the only example, and I knew, sat there in that first lockdown, I needed to change some things. After that first lockdown was over, I essentially started my business all over again, from 0 clients. I went to Chelsea, and the first tangible thing I did was I raised my prices by 50%. I did this with 2 reasons in mind. Number 1, I wanted clients to cancel their sessions less. I actually wanted to coach. I don't like the idea of being paid and just sat there. It's just dead time. I want you to come in and be coached. And the second thing was I hoped that by having a higher price, it would put people off who weren't actually interested in doing proper PT. But that wasn't the biggest change I made. I decided that from that point moving forward, as long as my bills were paid, I would never work with anybody like that ever again, which was a massive change for me. If I'm completely open and honest, when I first started PT, I was chasing the money. And the reason I was chasing the money was because I wanted to be a boxer. I wanted to make more money in less time so I had more time to train. But now, especially with boxing being gone, I realized that whole attitude, that almost mercenary attitude, was getting me nowhere. In fact, it was almost taking me backwards. I felt so unhappy. It was actively making me dislike personal training and dislike working with clients. Now, obviously, we all have bad clients from time to time, but the variable we need to pay attention to is our boundaries. I wasn't going to chase money anymore. I was going to chase quality coaching relationships. And I wasn't going to undercharge anymore. I was going to charge what was fair. And I was never ever going to have another client be rude to me in a session without checking them. When you work one-on-one with clients as a service professional, I'm talking massage therapists, personal trainers, physios even, right? A lot of people will think that we work less hours, right? That might be true in some ways in terms of the actual service. However, those hours are far more draining than most normal jobs, right? 6 hours of PT feels like 10 hours in a normal job. I know because I've done both. Now, when you're then dealing with toxic clients and people being rude to you in a business that you own, it just makes everything impossible, right? You just don't want to be there, you don't want to deal with it. You just want to go and do something else when you feel like that. There's a quote from Jordan B. Peterson that I always remember, which he always said was, don't allow your kids to do something that's going to make you dislike them, right? Now, in no way am I trying to be patronizing of clients because they're not kids, right? But it's the same kind of thing. if you allow them to behave in ways that you dislike and it makes you dislike them, you can't allow them to do it. You have to just set those boundaries there and then. Because if you allow them to behave in ways that you quite frankly, you don't accept on the inside, you're not going to have a long-term career because you're going to hate what you do. You're going to dread going to train people, and you're literally getting paid to train people. So that is not a long-term recipe for fulfillment and success. What I would love to know though is, what boundaries do you set with your clients? Because I've got my own personality and my own quirks, but I'd love to know what you do. So comment that below and I would love to hear about it. And if there's any value or anything interesting that you found from this video, if you could subscribe and hit that little bell, that would help me to grow, and it would help me to help more personal trainers like yourself as well. So with that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.